Get your glasses out.
Okay. Oh, yay. Okay, is anybody new here? Hi, welcome, welcome. Have you noticed where the bathrooms are? I always think that's really important.
It's the first thing.
You know, you should just know where those are. So they're in this hallway right here. You just take a key to get in, and you can just leave the key in the door because there's more than one stall. So, yeah, we have neighbors now. The acting class, I'm sure you passed some of the people on your way in. So it's a lovely, very, very polite, friendly crowd, but it's a crowd. And so on the first Thursdays of every month, they're starting a new group, and we're starting a new group. So it may be noisier than usual. So we just have to learn to be okay with that, because they're just loving sentient beings trying to learn how to act. So, so just like us. So anyway, but okay, so this is Discovering Buddhism, and just to keep you confused, it's called DB5 because this is death and rebirth. And the FPMT has them set up as an order of the Lamrim Chenpa, the treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So we skip over spiritual teacher and presenting the path, and we do them later. Or we do presenting the path sort of halfway through so that people who are new kind of get an overview of the whole path because they'll have missed several things. And then we do spiritual leader teacher later because, you know, if you're just discovering Buddhism, you don't really need the teachings yet on the spiritual teacher. So, but in order to be able to, you know, for you to keep track of where you are, it's DB5. So that's Discovering Buddhism. Okay. So how many people went to Jackie's class, our discussion group on Lama Yeshe's book? Okay. So good. So bring your questions from there as well. One of the texts for this class is that text. It's included in the reading. So don't mistake it as something new. It's actually the text you just read for that discussion group. So you've got a head start, which is good because it's pretty long. This module has a lot of reading. So do your best. Don't panic. I'm going to send you an email tonight or tomorrow that has the all the readings, and the first ones we'll be reading aren't so long. I think. So, anyway, but it does have to read them before class because then you can bring your questions with you. You know, you'll have time to think about it. So now let's just take a moment to kind of settle in here, just by sitting up straight, getting kind of a comfortable seat. And a good way to bring your attention to what's going on now and leave behind all the busyness of getting here and the work day and whatever you're going to do after this class, all that kind of thing, is to just bring your mind's attention to your physical body sitting here. So just scan from the top of your head to your toes, just check in with your body. And you can use your breath to release any spots of tension. Sometimes just bringing the mind's attention to a spot and then taking a few belly breaths can help release the tension and help you to relax. Let your face soften. The areas around the eyes, the jaw. Letting the neck and the shoulders soften. And fill your belly and your chest with air. Letting your lungs expand, your ribcage expand. Allowing your breath to reach all the parts of your body. And just try to remember why you decided to come to this class. Doesn't matter what the reason is, but you want to generate a positive motivation and a positive intention to use your time well. So for whatever the reason, curiosity, interest, deepening your practice, whatever it is, try to set an intention to listen with an open heart, open mind, with curiosity. With the wish that it be of benefit, that you learn something about how to find peace for your mind, and with the wish that this ripples out to benefit others around you. And now just gently bring your attention to the class. And I forgot to introduce myself. For those who are new, my name is Tendron. It's like the number 10, E-R-O-N, since I pronounce it with a southern accent. So you might not recognize might be special. Okay, so death and rebirth. Yay! So, why might we want to look into that?
It's going to happen to all of us.
Bingo! There's no escape. This is just a fact. So, in Buddhism, it's said that if we prepare our minds for the time of death, we can have a much easier transition. You know, be prepared for what will happen, and also be open to what's next. We could even use the mind at the time of death to have some realizations on the path. That takes a bit of practice, but you know, we start where we are. So when you think about death, your own death in particular, what arises in your mind?
It's over.
This is it.
I was thinking I'm going to be losing something.
Okay, so yes. So what will you be losing?
Well, that's it.
You don't know. Yes, but yes, that's the fear.
Yeah, I have this whole story about me missing paradise. I'm not going to get comfortable with my consciousness.
And there's this fear of losing, of ceasing to exist. You know, that's pretty innate in us, that we kind of go, oh, no, not me. So there's a bit of a concern about that. A lot of us are afraid of any kind of illness or pain with death, the afraid of not the actual moment of the death so much as how is it going to look? Is it going to be a painful one, a hard one, a quick one? All those kinds of things. So what we try to look at in this class are what actually happens at the time of death, what happens with the mind, how in this system, in the Buddhist system, there's no thought that where our mind ceases at the time of death. We go on and have a next life. So we'll talk about that and what creates a cause for that. And what makes it likely what kind of preparations can we make that will help us actually have an easy time at the time of death and also a good rebirth. So, all on the same page with that? Okay. And now we'll have a moment of prayer for technology. Does the light look like it's coming on? Yes. I do that after it wakes up. Because if I do it before it wakes up, then sometimes it doesn't seem to know. All right. It's a miracle. Okay. So the best way to prepare for one's death is to practice Dharma for one's whole life. So in the Buddhist context, Dharma means actions of body, speech, and mind that lead to happiness and away from suffering. That's really basically it. So it's what the Buddha observed through his meditations, his realizations, and finally his omniscience of cause and effect. And so it became omniscient about what are the causes that lead to happiness and what are the causes that lead to our suffering. And it all comes down to the mind, to our actions, our mental actions. Pretty simple for sure. What I am saying, in other words, is that dying is a situation where a person needs to have prepared beforehand because you can't get it together while you're in the middle of it. So Lama Tsongkhapa is one of our major authors in this tradition. He was alive, I think, in the 1300s and wrote lots and lots of texts. And so he wrote a short text called The Foundation of All Good Qualities, which is a great review of all the stages of the path. And then he reinforces this idea that life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma ensue. So in Buddhism, the time of death, it's very important because according to the teachings, that moment at the time of death determines the kind of rebirth you have.
Oh.
I know, it's a big deal, isn't it? Yeah, it's a big moment. So the good news is that our habits of mind are what's likely to be present at the time of death. So the more we practice a calm, even mind, peaceful mind, no matter what's going on around us, the more likely we'll have that kind of mind at the time of death. And since the good news is that during life, that's a very useful kind of mind to have too. So it's not just useful at the time of death. So, it is something we all benefit from trying to cultivate now. So, but our karma, which is the law of causality, those are the causes and effects. That our states of mind, our positive actions of our mind, of our body, and of our speech result in positive effects in the future. Our negative states of mind, body, and speech affect, our unpleasant experiences in the future. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The next Discovering Buddhism module that starts in November, is this October? In November, is on karma. So we'll go into it a lot more in detail then. But the major thing here is to understand that if we are freaked out at the time of death, we're angry or terrified or whatever, that's a condition for a negative seed to ripen. So we really want to get a handle on that and not, so we don't get freaked out. And that may seem impossible, but it really is. It gets back to this idea of a habit. If we just start to cultivate a habit where we kind of don't immediately react to whatever conditions are arising around us, we don't, have a reaction, a habitual, unskillful habit way of reacting. And instead, we're able to step back a little bit, and kind of look at things and then choose how we respond. We practice that habit, then that's likely what we'll do when we're facing death. Either when we're facing the doctor who's saying, sorry, nothing I can do for you, or the car careening towards you. That you'll just be like, oh, so this is how it's going. So, with a mind of, more of a curiosity rather than freaking out, and so that's just a practice. I mean, and you may have had some near-death experiences where you discovered that you don't react like you think you will. I had a car careening towards me that flipped over twice, and I thought, oh, gee, this is how I'm going to die. The person driving me was going, oh no, I have to go back to chick racing and say I killed a nun. So, she didn't have one thought that she could die, So it's interesting how we have these different, I wasn't driving, she was hopefully driving, but the car just moved over, it flipped over again, everybody in it was safe, the kids were screaming, but they were all wearing their seatbelt, and nothing happened. So, yay. But it was just that, but so at that moment, the more we can just kind of go, oh, okay, and not be immediately reactive, that would be helpful. So it does not mean to say I'm ready. It just means in that one moment, it was kind of okay. So we can think of our mind as like a river, Rivers change names, when they go through different countries. The mind changes bodies through time. So when this life ends or this body ceases, we take birth in a different body according to our karma. So it's the body that ceases, not the mind. Bodies have a beginning, mind does not. Karma continues along with the mind. The minds of beings in samsara, this cyclic existence from birth to death to rebirth, are always covered with delusion. It is our ignorance that the Buddha taught is the root cause of us being stuck in this just endless cycle of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death, uncontrolled birth and death, which means what decides what's going to happen are our past actions, and they write them. So I don't know about you, but I've certainly noticed when I look at my mind that it feels like I have no control over my mind sometimes. It just pushes me forward. It's sort of like, of course I'm angry. Of course I'm this. Of course I'm that. Look what's happening. Of course I'm that way. And the Buddha stresses that those are just habits. We've just been practicing those habits of reacting for a very, 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 very long time. And they arise due to our false sense of how things exist, our desire to not lose this body, not to lose this story, this life, And from that, all these negative or unskillful actions arise where we feel the need to protect ourselves and everything that we consider belonging to us because we're so afraid of losing it. Because we think our happiness lies in that, all these externals. Any questions so far?
About thoughts. So thoughts don't necessarily, the way I'm thinking of it now, thoughts are objects of mind, but they're not mind. So thoughts
No, that's incorrect. That was one of those things we needed to discuss from mind and its potential from your exam. No. So mind and thoughts are actions of mind. It's a mental action. So anger, like if we have a thought of anger, that's a state of mind. Anger is a state of mind. And all the thoughts that follow from that, those are states of mind. They are all mind. We also have, our mind has a quality of awareness. That's its job. Its job is to know. So but what it knows depends on what information we're giving it. Now, some of that information is from our senses. So we have an eye awareness and an ear awareness and a nose awareness and a touch awareness and a taste awareness. So we get inputs from the physical sense powers, and, we'll also have thoughts, a mental awareness that responds to these sense awarenesses. They're all mind. Okay. So, yes.
Sorry. Okay. So, do we ever know that? Does our mind ever know that we were once somebody else?
Yeah, your mind always knows. We just don't have access to it.
The reason why I'm asking is I had an event happen to me once where I visited this place and I said twice throughout the trip, I forgot how beautiful it was, but I was never there. And it freaked me out because I was never there.
Yeah, in Buddhist cultures, and Hindu cultures, it would just be, deja vu is just a memory. Sometimes it's not accurate. Sometimes we think we remember something and actually what we're remembering is something similar or some, movie we saw or whatever. But sometimes it's just literally a memory, So we don't actually mind. These things exist on the mind. Mind never ceases. It's just that our recall is so bad. We have obstacles to remembering our past lives, one of which is ignorance, that we grasp onto the self of this life as if it's the only, we create this whole story about the self of this life. So, but in other countries that believe in rebirth, when small children are much, often have these memories much more accessible. When they remember, their parents don't treat it as silly. You know, their parents go, oh, okay. so they're not so quick to forget this information. You know, so they might remember for a little while, you know, His Holiness the Dalai Lama had memories from that. You know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche has memories of that. Ordinary people, you know, might not be so ordinary, but, you know, have memories of these things. So it's the fact that we don't remember is really not sufficient to prove that it didn't happen. I mean, after all, you know, like, if you asked me what I was thinking this morning, I wouldn't be able to tell you. So, you know, it's about our distraction. Our level of distraction in the mind keeps us from being able to access all the information that's actually there. You know, so it's like, you know, my dad died of Alzheimer's, and when he, you know, at certain times, even though he was really quite far along, you know, that he could tell you all of a sudden, tell you clear as day something. Well, so it was there. It's not like the disease erased it. He just couldn't access it most of the time. His brain was failing. His mind was not. So that's, you know, we are very dependent on our physical support for our mind. So when the mind gets damaged, or if we're born with brain damage, or if we have a head injury, or if we have a disease, these things will all affect our ability to utilize our minds well. It doesn't mean the mind gets damaged, but it does mean the physical support for the mind gets damaged. So that's something to look at. That's a point of disagreement between scientists and Buddhists, but not Buddhist scientists. So, and there are no. I'm just being silly. Okay, so mind is eternal. I'm bringing these terms up because they're different than we use them in English. Okay, so mind is eternal in the sense that it has no beginning and no end. Okay, but it's impermanent in the sense that it is changing moment to moment. It literally, you know, lasts for a moment, disintegrates, and we have the next moment of moment. It isn't that there's this one mind that's permanent since the beginning of time, that will be permanent, period. That's eternal, period. It's that there's a continuum of mind that is beginningless and endless. Each moment of my mind produces the next moment of mine. And it's all part of my continuum. Not Tendra's continuum, just, you know, this particular mind that I call mine now. My mind will never be your mind. But like, if you take a tea light and light a whole bunch of tea candles, you know, it'll seem like it's, you know, like it's root, it's the same flame, but it's not the same flame. You know, they each have, you know, each moment of those candles, or each flame on those candles are separate. And that's how our mind is. There are moments of mind. This moment of mind produces the next moment of mind. That moment, and that mind's gone, that moment. You know, it's why we talk about, you know, like you can never grasp the present. You know, because you know, if you grab, it's already gone. Sorry, you know, it's faster. So, and this is, you know, we know this from physics. This is something the scientists, you know, agree that nothing is as it appears to us. You know, we appear like these solid, you know, bodies, right? You know, well, it's not true, is it? What's actually happening?
Changing, constantly changing.
Why? How? In what way?
change things downstairs.
How about in this moment? What's happening with our atoms and electrons and protons and quarks and neutrinos flowing through all the time? Well, I'm getting older. Yeah, no doubt of that. And guess what? You'll get younger too. So, yeah. But then you'll be reborn, you know? And all of those who say, I'd never be 16 again. Sorry, you're going to be 16 again. So anyway, so when Buddhism says the word impermanent, it just means it's momentary. It is not talking about whether it has a continuum that is endless or not. When it talks about things that are permanent, it's talking about things that don't change. It does not mean that it never ceases. So that's kind of hard to explain. Okay, so this cup and the emptiness of this cup, the emptiness of this cup is the absence of inherent existence. That's permanent. In every moment that the cup arises, every moment of cup, a permanent quality of the absence of inherent existence exists. It is not something that is changing moment to moment. It's just an absence of something. So every moment of the cup, the emptiness of the cup exists. When the cup is destroyed, the emptiness of the cup doesn't exist because there's no cup.
Got that for like 1 second.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's in course 12. You know, we're 5 when we're really only on 3. So, but I do want to just alert you to these terms that, you know, because we're relying on translations into a language, you know, that we already had, you know, words, not the words as they're used in a Buddhist context are not necessarily the way we use them in day-to-day English. So sometimes that could be confusing. Yep.
So I read all over the place, all compounded things are impermanent.
Right.
So then the mind is not a compound.
Yes, it is a compound. It's produced. It's impermanent as well.
Eternal and impermanent. Eternal and impermanent.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't mean what it means in English. Yes,
How does mind differ from consciousness?
it is the same.
Okay,
Those words
So-
are interchangeable.
so I have another question. Are you familiar with Jung?
No, I
Okay.
used to be.
Well, there is archetypal consciousness, which is that there's an inherent shared consciousness of all life form. That it's not everything that we are, but it's part of what we are. Is that
No.
contradiction to Buddhism?
Yes. Buddhism doesn't hold that there's anything that is permanent or inherent. In particular, everything is empty of inherent existence. Now that has a very particular meaning. And so over time, you know, we'll get a better and more clear idea of what that means in Buddhism. But this idea that we have some sort of permanent nature or the universe has some sort of, you know, essence that is fixed doesn't exist according to Buddhism. In fact, it's taught that it's impossible to exist that way. So not having read it in quite a long time, I can't be certain because again, sometimes our jargon is such that it's not clear. But if it's like if you hold like a soul to be something that is who you are and it's unchanging, that is refuted in Buddhism. So but it doesn't mean there isn't a continuum of mind. That's what goes from life to life.
And that's consciousness, right?
That's consciousness.
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't see how that differs from what Jung was saying, but
Well, I mean, again, it's terminology, and so since
Right.
I'd have to be really familiar.
I don't want to dominate this.
Yeah. So, okay. The mind is clear, that means it's unobstructed. It has no shape or color, not one tiny atom of physical matter. The mind is not the brain. The mind is not the central nervous system. The mind is not all those things, the electricity that's going through the body, telling it what to do. But it's not just nothing. You know, it's a non-physical object that has the function of knowing. So it can perceive whatever objects are mine, you know, whatever it's holding as its object. And like a mirror, it reflects the object. And, you know, just like our sense awarenesses can be mistaken, you know, where it thinks that there's water out in the desert, or, you know, thinks that a mountain is blue because of the light on the snow. The reflective quality of the mind can also be wrong due to the, you know, what object it's holding. So if we give it incorrect information, you know, it's going to reflect that incorrect information. In addition to that, the Buddha taught that every moment of mind, while we're in ordinary moment, yes, every moment of mind, we'll stand firm with that, is influenced by this ignorance of how we exist. We have a, yeah.
Is the brain and the mind ever work together?
It always works together.
They do work together.
Mhm.
So,
Or not work together, depending on the state of your brain.
okay, so the brain, I understand it's a physical form, but I guess, so they do work together and sometimes not work together. So when you look
Well, they're dependent,
they
you know,
depend on each other.
but it's not the mind and body, or the mind and physical support it rise upon are inseparable, you know. But it doesn't. But the reason we have, let's not go there yet.
Okay.
It's complicated.
Sounds, yeah.
You know, the main thing to get here is, according to Buddhism, mind is not physical. We're highly dependent on the physical support. This is why a mosquito's mind is not going to get enlightened in this life. It has a lousy physical support. The quality of a mosquito's mind is no different from ours. None. It's just trapped in a body that's not helpful. But next life, it could be a human being. Buddhism doesn't talk about a linear upward progression of evolution. You know, to be a human in this life, have great conditions, completely throw them away and have a mosquito birth next time. So how we use this wonderful support for our mind is really important in Buddhism, because we don't know when we'll meet these conditions again. So we want to use them well, and we want to try the best we can to have good conditions in the very next life.
Do I have that look up?
No, it's just, sometimes I hear this stuff and I think, wow, how did I get through this?
I have a question though. It says, like, does mind exist when it's not in the body?
Yes.
It
There
does.
is never, it's a continuum and it's eternal. So from moment to moment,
It exists.
it's producing the next moment of moment.
But when it's not in the body, when you're not having,
It's always got a body.
it's always got a body.
Yeah.
What happens when it goes, like when it's in between the bodies?
It's never really in between the body. When this body dies, it arises in the intermediate state body. When that body dies, you arise in the next physical, you know, whatever it is you're going to end up as.
So that consciousness is always conscious.
Correct. That's why we call it conscious. No, I'm kidding. So, yeah, there are no gaps, except from moment to moment. It's momentary. It never ceases. It always rides upon a physical form. Buddha minds ride upon a very, very, very subtle wind. They don't need a body like this at all. But what allows the mind to move towards its objects, is a physical support.
So they're permanent.
Buddhas are not permanent.
No, the mind. The mind is the one thing that.
Mind is not permanent. Nope. It is eternal, but impermanent because it changes moment to moment.
That's right. It was I saw.
I know. This is when we need those Google glasses where it just kind of keeps going. No. Wrong idea. Okay. I really sympathize because I've been here, where I've heard these teachings for the first time going, that was a bit outrageous. So, the hypothesis of why the cause of mind is a previous moment of mind is this non-physical versus physical. That causes have to be of a similar type. As the result, you can't produce something non-physical from something physical. According to Buddhism, you can't produce something physical from something non-physical. The cause and result are similar in type. They have a similar nature. So you need an apple seed for the apple tree. You need a mango seed for the mango tree. You need a moment of mind for a moment of mind. There are 3 levels of mind: gross, subtle, and very subtle. Our gross minds are our sense awarenesses. Those all cease at the time of death because they're completely dependent upon the sense powers. So as the sense powers decay and cease functioning, you won't be able to hear, see. Because those are not mental awarenesses, they are sense awarenesses. The subtle mind is our mental awareness of thinking. The very subtle mind is the mind of clear light that goes from light to light. At the time of death, all the grosser levels of mind no longer are supported, so they're not active. That's when the clear light aspect of the mind arises, and that's what goes into the next life. But as soon as as you enter the next body, the gross awarenesses reappear. So it's a very brief, yeah.
Thank you. And earlier slide, you talked about perception. That the mind perceives what may not be real, which also means that the sense of truth also changes.
The sense of what?
Truth. What is true?
Well, what is true, it depends, like in Buddhism, the only thing that is true is emptiness. Everything else is a conventional truth. It's a relative truth. So, we have, it's dual. It's dualism. That you can only have tall if you have short. You can only have good if you have bad. You can only have joy if you have the opposite of that. There's all this dualistic perception. There is me and there's you. There's us and there's them.
That's like relativity.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, but if we look at, I beg your pardon. Well, this is
No,
your
Buddhism-
class.
Yep, that's correct. So Buddhism doesn't.
That's true.
No, it's not absolutely true. But it's. This is the basic premise of Buddhism: is that at the heart of our getting stuck in this cyclic existence, uncontrolled cyclic existence, where it's the nature of suffering, is this inability to see how things actually exist. We see things as if they're solid, concrete, permanent, and they're not. Even though intellectually we get, especially now that scientists have been able to help us and we've got instruments to be able to tell us that things are not like that at all. But in spite of knowing that, we still grasp as if they are. And we know this just when we're shocked when something breaks, when someone dies, when someone walks out on us. We have a tendency, our habit energy holds things to be permanent, to be unchanging. It's as if, as soon as everything's a dependent arising, right? Everything arises due to causes and conditions. We have no trouble understanding that, In spite of that, it's as if the moment something arises into some object that we label, it becomes that. It is not just a moment in a series of moments, a dependent arising and eventually cease and da 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 da. We hold it to be, this is my body. No, this is me. No, this isn't me. This is my shoulder. We really grasp on to a very false sense of there being something static about us. Yes.
Do we accumulate karmic imprints on all three levels?
Yeah. So, but karma just means negative action in this context. So, we'll get there. So, the point of all this is that we really want to understand how precious our situation is right now. Because not only do we have this wonderful support system for our mind, we also have good conditions with which to use it. We have the leisure to show up to a class like this, to explore, to experiment, to think about, blah, blah, blah. An awful lot of human beings don't have that leisure. They are just stuck in survival mode. All they can do is make sure they have food, make sure they have shelter, take care of their kids, all that stuff. And some of them can't even do that. So having a human rebirth is not enough. You need really good conditions to be able to, have the time to explore what's really going on. So we want to use this time well. Because people end. And we may not have these good conditions. But if we use these good conditions well, the likelihood is we'll have another try. And we need a series of good rebirths in order to remove our ignorance. Okay. So there's a basic 9-point meditation on death. And this is about trying to go from intellectually understanding that we're all going to die and actually having a realization, I'm going to die. So it is to inspire us, not to depress us, because it's a fact. It's just a fact. It's going to happen. So every time you're sitting there killing time, you might want to rethink that. Every time you're doing something you don't want to do and you don't have to do, you might want to rethink that. We want to use our time well. It's our time. So death is definite. So the three roots of this meditation is that death is definite, certain, inevitable. Those aren't the three. That's one. Death is certain, or death is definite. Sorry. The time of death is uncertain. None of us know when we're going to die. I have a couple of friends who've been dying for years, and I know, they really are. I mean, they have, illnesses that are going to kill them, and their doctors keep thinking they should be dead, and they're not dead. But yet we have mutual friends that have died in between who didn't seem to have any illness. So there you go. The only thing that helps us at the time of death is our spiritual practice, which really means the changes we've made in our mind. Mind and heart are the same word in Buddhism. Yeah. And that's true of all Asian languages, which really inspires me. So this first point, death is definite. We need to, so you'll get a meditation on these. So what you really want to allow yourself to know this, that no one can stop death. Rich people die, poor people die, little babies die, 95-year-olds die, 105-year-olds die, 117-year-olds die, that's going to happen. Doesn't matter how rich you are, poor you are, stupid you are, smart you are, doesn't matter. The body fails. We also cannot increase the time we have left. According to the teachings, the moment of death, when your karma ripens for your next life, there's a lifespan to it. You can die early, but you can't extend it. The time to practice Dharma is extremely limited. So that's when you want to think about how much you sleep, how much time you spend eating, how much time you spend bathing, how much time you spend working, whatever. I mean, you can make all that time useful on working with your mind, but you want to think about how much is left. So we want to come to the conclusion we need to practice. And then we look at the time of death as uncertain. So the length of time we have is unknown. Many things can cause death, few things cause life. We can die from the food, from the air, from the water, from the wind, from it's mosquitoes. It is unbelievable that just about everything we can need can also kill us. We are extremely vulnerable. So holding on to this idea that, oh yeah, I know I'm going to die, but not today, is based on nothing. Nothing. People die every day. So the body's extremely fragile. So the conclusion is we need to practice now, not wait. And that only Dharma or only your spiritual practice can help at the time of death. So our possessions can't help us, our family and friends can't help us, and our bodies not only can't help us, they are what's failing. So we really need to practice on our mind. Because if we practice with a pure motivation, meaning that, it's really not about grasping or greed, or it's not about self-cherishing. It's about wanting to have a good rebirth so you can continue this work. Because, yes, go ahead. Oh, there's someone behind you. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Do you believe that our root master is there when we die?
Depending on how strong your karmic connection is and your practice, there's no reason for that mind not to be present. A Buddha's mind's present everywhere. That's why it's omniscient. It pervades all things. So all enlightened beings' minds are everywhere all the time in every moment. They rise, disintegrate, so they're newly arisen in every moment, but they pervade everything. And so if your root guru is a Buddha, an enlightened being, it certainly will be there. If it's a bodhisattva, with realizations, it can be there. But it depends on your karma. It's two-sided. So you have to create the cause for it to be there. Because they'll be there if you create the cause. That's the only thing that holds them back, is your obstacles, not their obstacles. So we need to start developing some determination that since nothing can prevent my death, my life is constantly finishing, and I spend little time practicing Dharma, I must practice Dharma. And guess what's next? I must practice it right now, from this very moment on, without postponing it for even a second. So we really need to understand what states of mind cause suffering or lead us to a negative rebirth, and what states of mind, what actions lead us in a positive way. And so their teachings on that. The main thing is trying to act from a place that doesn't put yourself above others. Not that you see yourself below others, it's just that you are equal to others. That everybody equally deserves happiness, everybody equally deserves freedom from suffering, and that whatever actions that you do shouldn't be at the expense of anybody else. And it will not bring happiness in the long run. So it's not about not having self-care, it's about not having self-centeredness and self-cherishing above others. And it's about a focus that has the long view, not just what do I want now. Boy, the beginning of this class is really pow, 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 pow. So I often talk about the importance of a motivation in the morning. So this is part of why. Because we spend an awful lot of our time just plowing through the day, And I mean, how many times do you, at the end of the day, you kind of go, I don't even remember we just plow through. This is your life you're talking about, So we really want to develop the ability to notice, to live your life. When we plow through, what's controlling us? Habit. Whatever habits we've developed. And that's not giving us any choice in maybe changing habits. If we just keep following them, day in, day out, all we're doing is strengthening those habits. So what if we start the day by remembering what's important to us, what our big view is, what our long-term desires are, not our short-term cravings, then we can learn to step back and make choices from moment to moment instead of just following this energy. But a motivation in the morning really, really helps. If you can wake up and take a few moments to just think. First of all, what's the first thing you can think? I'm alive. And not only am I alive, I still have a human body. Yay! I don't, I'm not going irritating everybody, getting ready to be swatted, we're still a human being. Yay, this is very good news. So, and we shouldn't assume that of course we wake up. A lot of people won't, and we need to remember that. So when we wake up, we can think, wow, I'm so glad to be here. I have gratitude for still being here. And I have compassion for all the beings who lost someone last night. Really appreciate that you're here. It's not something to feel bad about or feel like, ooh, what did I do to deserve this? Well, it's, Your lifespan has not ended. So we want to use it well because it will end. So we want to think about what is it that we're trying to, get out of life. And that isn't usually, a good way to do this is to, when you have some time, to sit down and think that you're on your deathbed, and think about what you're going to think about. And see if you're spending much time in making sure that your thoughts are about those things. If you spend all of your time seeking fame or money or whatever, things, stuff, watching TV shows, watching movies, reading murder mysteries, my personal favorite, on my deathbed, I can guarantee you, I'm not going to be thinking, oh, I've run out of time to read murder mysteries. It's not going to come up. What's likely to come up is I can't believe how much time I wasted reading murder mysteries. We want to avoid this. Because that kind of regret at the end of life doesn't help us at all. So we really want to think about, a lot of us have super busy lives. And we really want to look, am I filling up my life with stuff that is meaningless to me? That doesn't mean that, you have to have a meaningful job. We need jobs. We have to earn a living. We have to be able to pay for our food and our shelter and, blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. We need necessities. We have to, we have to participate in community, and this is how we can, this is how we do it. We don't always have a choice about what kind of work we do, It's about whether or not we are letting that rule our days. So all we think about is weekend. I can't wait for the weekend. Well, your mind doesn't wait for the weekend. Your mind's present during all of these activities. So we can use it, so if you don't like your job, for example, and there's nothing you can really do about it, what can you do instead? Thinking about not being able to do anything about it.
Reflect on how you're helping others, seeing the value in what you're doing.
Yeah, even if your value of what you're doing is that you're just participating in, the stuff, I need, stoplights and hubcaps and bumpers on my car, and, I need clothes. I'm so grateful that people make them, that we can think about, that, this helps someone, and I'm grateful to have a job, because not everybody has one. I'm grateful to have a job that's safe. I'm not working in a coal mine. I'm glad I'm in, in a country where asbestos is still not being, whatever. I'm grabbing at straws here. But the point is that if we can't do something about it, we can't change our job, or be foolish to change our jobs, because who knows if we'll get another one, et cetera, then we might as well be grateful for the one we have. And you might as well recognize that it's allowing you to have shelter and clothes and food. And that's a good thing. And so if that's where you point your mind, so that you can stop the habit of just thinking, if a lot of your job is repetitive because your boss keeps telling you to redo something that you've already done, just remember you're getting paid for that. Just think, oh, this is a no-brainer. So, we have to, but this is about making an effort to not add suffering on top of something that isn't our preference. If we decide, if our habit energy is just to be negative about it all day long, you might want to change that. And that's something we have control over just by paying attention to what's going on in our mind. You know, it's kind of noticing, oh man, I'm just complaining in my mind. And that's not making me happy. Let me take up a different subject. You know, so cultivating gratitude. Cultivate, you know, oh, this job allows me to do so many things I want to do. It allows me to take care of my children. It allows me to take care of, you know, whatever. So this is why setting a motivation in the morning can help you. If you can really think about what's important to you. Well, what's important to me is to have a positive mind. What's important to me, because having a positive mind means I treat the people around me better. You know, I don't lose my patience with my children if I have a positive mind. If I have gratitude in my mind, you know, I'm more likely to see how I can be helpful to someone else. Because the focus will not be on me. These can radically change how we experience our days. If we're focused on how dissatisfying it is, guess what happens at the end of the day? You've trained yourself to feel bad. And you've practiced it all day long.
I have a question. If what we're doing is just, I know I have to kind of work through it, but there's a question I have about how if we're working through our day by creating a motivation, which to me seems like a story, which I felt like I learned was story is something we're kind of pushing away from us. In some ways, is there a difference between the story and the motivation?
Well, in a way, it's a way to make the story work for you. You know, so we live in a story in the sense that we live in conventional, you know, things aren't as they appear to us, they function. You know, we all have to make a living. We have, you know, all this stuff. We're here, you know, so we have to function within that space. How we function in that space is important in terms of how we treat others, also how we treat ourselves. That activity is important. That's part of the method side of going towards Buddhahood. Okay. At the same time, we want to work on how we perceive reality. Okay. So we let go of the story in the sense of recognizing that, yes, each of these moments we're getting closer to death, but at that time of death, we're going to be reborn in the next life. So the big picture view is, I want to make sure that my actions lead towards a good rebirth. So what we do matters. How we think matters. So if we need to help ourselves turn our mind towards cherishing others so that we just have a more meaningful life, so that we have, you know, we're not just so focused on, you know, the dissatisfaction that we find. We need to practice that. And it's really not about a new story, it's about the other half of the story. Like, we may be just, you know, not be thrilled about the job we have, but we're really grateful we have money to pay our bills. I mean, both are true. You know, it's just, where do you want to focus? Now, if you can change your job to something you would like better, go by all means, change it. You know, but if you can't, you might as well focus on the good stuff, because you're training your mind in a positive direction. Mostly because we suffer less, and when we suffer less, we treat others better. You know, when people are angry, it's coming from a suffering place. So the more we can do to come from a peaceful, kind place, you know, that reduces our suffering right away. And it certainly helps be a good condition for others around us. Yes.
So would you say that stories are negative and in the sense that they promote grasping and ignorance?
I would say stories are negative, or they're unskillful or not useful when we're holding something to be true that isn't true. So if we're holding something, if we're saying, it is my job that's making me miserable, that's not true. It's not true. It is your mind and the way you think about that job that is making you miserable. So what is the mind of anger exaggerate? Negative things. It can't, when you're angry, all you see is the negative stuff. You can't see the positive stuff. And that person, if it's a person, becomes this enemy. And we forget all about the fact that we like this person, because right at this moment they're doing something we don't want. So all we see is that negative. Now we can also do the opposite. What do we do when we're infatuated? We're exaggerating the positive. Again, it's, if we're holding on to that story, when the infatuation passes, what do? Well, what do? You usually move on. Marriages can't, survive that. Long-term relationships are dependent on a more realistic view of the other person. So if we keep holding on to a story that is completely fabricated by our up and down moods of whether we like what they're doing or don't like what they're doing, it's a total storyline. It's all completely made up from our exaggerated responses. It is not based on anything that's happening. So we want to be aware when our mind is unreliable, when our states of mind are unreliable. So when we're exaggerating something, it's no longer a state of mind we can draw any kind of good conclusions about. That's why we have to develop our inner wisdom about these things. We have to recognize when we're hooked, and that we're just responding to not getting what we want, or we're responding to this momentary, I'm getting everything I want, which we're making up, so that we can, recognize that constant grasping at an exaggerated quality that does not exist at all keeps us on a roller coaster. And we get kind of addicted to that. It's like if it's not intense, then it wasn't meaningful. Which is just a story you're telling us. I mean, we like sensation. This is why we are born in the desire realm, according to the Buddha. We have the habit of craving and meeting that craving, and we like it. What we're not recognizing is that if we really look at what's going on in our minds, we will discover it's very agitating, and it is not actually pleasant. It's like you're on the seat of that, you're right at the top of the roller coaster and it's just about to go down. There's a moment that just like, oh, this looks good. And the next moment you go, the thrill's over. It's terrifying. So this is the kind of thing we want to be able to start to get in touch with. We just want to notice when we're following this storyline that's totally inaccurate. And it causes us to have false expectations. It causes us to keep thinking that our happiness and suffering is out here, not in how we're responding. So, and developing gratitude by itself is a very helpful state of mind to cultivate a feeling that things are good enough. Contentment is very helpful in reducing the mind of craving.
Yes.
You know, that's the thing. We have to really understand that the mind of craving, if you look, is suffering. It's going, I don't have what I want in this moment. You know, contentment is not that sensation. Contentment is, this is good enough. You know, it doesn't mean you don't enjoy when you get, you know, when your preferences are available. You know, it just means you don't put all your, you know, I can't be happy if I don't have that. Because it's not true. We can make that true by not being happy when we don't have that. By thinking my happiness exists in the, you know, the person, the chocolate cake, the job, the fame, the money, you know, whatever.
I'm a little confused though about when you are born again into a new body, and you know how children or babies, we tend to teach them how to be social, how to play nice, how to, you know, not be taking, wanting. But if our mind is continuous and we have all of this habits, then why, from what I gather, babies are mostly all act mostly the same.
Well, I'm not sure they do act the same. I think that, you know, that there's certain things we might say, well, you know, it's developmentally appropriate. But we kind of bring our personalities too, which just means our habits. You know, that there's some kids that seem to be calm from the beginning and others that seem agitated and angry or restless, you know. So I'm not sure I agree with that. But when we learn to be socialized, what does that really mean?
Being trained to act a certain way.
Yeah, does it do a whole lot to our thinking? I mean, this is what's interesting. We've all been socialized to share, you know, but does that mean we're not greedy? No. You know, it's like, you know, we've learned some benefits of community, getting along with others, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean that we still don't grasp after more is better, you know, or getting what I want is better. You know, I'm willing to share, but, you know, we have to negotiate. You know, so.
Well, they're conflicting messages too.
Well, yeah. So let's not, yeah. But I mean, I think that the point is that we keep having to relearn it because we still have this ignorance and it's still obscuring us from carrying our wisdom from life to life. Not entirely. I mean, you know, so what does this have to do with remembering that we're going to die? Oh yeah, we have to remember that we're going to die. I just think it's funny because it's if we think about our deathbed and think it would be helpful to feel like I can look back on my life and feel like there was some meaning. We want to make sure we're living our life so that can happen. That meaning can be that I really have worked hard on my mind. I've really worked hard on letting go of the stories I make up. I've really tried to let go of attachment and anger and impatience and all these kind of things, you know, and I've really tried to be helpful to others. I've even tried to like actually notice others and what their needs might be, you know. So, you know, we really want to look at that when we start the day so that when we finish the day, we can feel like, you know, the important stuff of my life happened because of the way, you know, my attitude is. So that when you're at work, you know, say that you treat your coworkers with respect and kindness and, you know, and from the point of view of how can I be of help, as opposed to don't get in my way. You know, instead of from your point of view, how can you be of help to me? Which is often how we actually think. We don't aware of it.
This is so fascinating, but it's also cultural. You know, I mean, if you look at incentives in this country.
But Buddhism would just say, that's why we're born here. If that's our habit, we're going to be in a society that's like that because we created the cause for that. So we're born, if we have a habit of, we're so interesting. We'd say in this country, we clearly have had the habit of both greed and generosity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So it's like,
it takes a village, but not mine.
Yeah. Not my backyard. But, so this is what's interesting. But Buddhism would just say, it isn't the other way around. That society is molding us. We landed in this society because we created the cause for that. That it reflects some habit energy we already have. And that we share, we have karmic, we have a karmic connection with these other people that were born into the same society with. That's how karma works. It's not just me, myself, alone. We are interconnected, interdependent, just like scientists tell us, and it's true of our minds as well. So we land in families due to our karmic, connections, our patterns, our habits. So, it's like, when I look at my family and I'm, and I lived in an angry household, it's no surprise at all that I get this, that it's not like bad luck. It is, that we have these challenges because we created the cause for them. This is a big picture view. This is why it takes, 13 modules of Buddhism, discovering Buddhism, to explain all these things, because it's not just one thing. We are very interconnected. We are all dependent arisings. We are not just dependent on our past actions, but we're also dependent on the conditions that are around us. All these things interweave into what we experience. But according to the teachings, we can't experience something we did not create the cause for. And that's in the next class. So we can have lots of arguments about that. So this is why thinking about the inevitability of death and how do I want to act right this moment, that's how this all fits together. It's because of our karma. If the law of causality is correct, then how we think and how we act is going to have a direct bearing on our next life. If you want to know how you used to think and how you acted in your previous life, at the moment of death, look at what you've got in this life. You've got good condition. You've got a good physical support for your mind. If you want to look at your next life, look at your mind. Yeah.
Does any of this change a little bit for people who are born handicapped, like physically handicapped, mentally handicapped? How does all this?
They created the cause for that. It doesn't mean we've all created the cause for that. It's just that it ripened in this life for them. We've all, our mind is beginningless. That means we've had time to do everything wrong.
So that person that may be mentally handicapped.
They don't have a perfect human rebirth. Yeah.
Yeah. How do they have
what?
Have the what word am I looking for? Have the tools to pass away peacefully.
They may not. That's why we need to have compassion and do whatever we can to improve their conditions. you know, you know, this isn't about blame. This isn't about like, oh, well, get over yourself. It's your fault in the first place. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with ignorance. We don't know what we're doing. And we've had, like I said, if mind is beginningless, we've done it all. We've been in the hells, we've been animals, we've been humans, we've been gods. We've done it all except get out of some sorrow. We haven't developed our wisdom enough to be liberated. So we keep, going like this. So this, we can be good conditions for other beings to have peaceful minds at the time of death. We can help with that. We can spend time, in hospice. We can spend time with our pets when they're dying. We can spend time with, people that are struggling with these things. That's a way we can help. Because we are all interconnected. And if we don't generate the compassion for others, then when we're in that spot, we're created the cause for no one to have compassion for us. It really is what goes around comes around. It's just a very long time. It's just, so it's not about thinking, they must have been terrible in the past life. It's really just about how can we help each other get in better circumstances with better minds, because we're all in it together. Every time you find someone difficult to deal with and you respond with anger and blah, blah, you're just keeping this going, But if you respond with an open heart that says, oh, I hear that you're really struggling with this. How can I be of help? It can change the energy for things. So we have, it's really not about, feeling guilty or having, or blaming people. It's about understanding how we don't know what we're doing. We don't take responsibility for our minds. We don't think our minds have anything to do with anything, But when we look around us, it's quite clear that everything is caught up in cause and effect. And we just forget that we're part of that. To me, it's a simple way to look at it in terms of cause and effect. We all know that if you want an apple orchard, you have to plant all these seeds, you have to have the right sun and the nutrients and all that kind of stuff, blah, 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 for the apple orchard. You also have to thought, I want an apple orchard. If the mind doesn't think that, we're not going to have any. We are involved. And according to the Buddha, that aspect of existence is not physical. And it doesn't, just like physicality has always been here. We've always had particles. We've always had this energy that's creating things and sucking things up and disappearing or whatever. And, all of that. There's also, so there's no beginning and end perhaps to physical stuff either. There's no beginning and end to our minds, to the non-physical. And they are. Yeah.
Does anybody ever grasp at the teachings or the wanting the wisdom?
You see, this is what's interesting. I love the way they talk about this. The teachings talk about this. Is you can't grasp, you can't become attached to the teachings because you can't exaggerate its good qualities.
You can or you can't.
You can't.
You can't. Because they're just.
Because they're correct. It can lead you out of suffering. They're your ticket out. You can't be attached to a Buddha because you can't exaggerate the good qualities of a Buddha. You see the difference? So the desire that wants to become a Buddha is not attachment.
It just feels that, and it feels in a way it's like, a longing, a wanting for that.
It's a good kind.
But that's not the same as grasping.
Yeah, look at And
one
you
that's
just-
the chocolate.
Right, and look at the difference. Chocolate's all about me now. That's all it's about. You know, I want some pleasure now, please.
And I want wisdom now.
Now that's attachment.
Right, that's.
I don't want to have to do anything to be wise now. That's attachment. That's unrealistic, it's inaccurate, it's not possible. So that's not,
Sow the seeds.
yeah, all you can do is head in the right direction. You know, we have to do the work. Right.
And how do we know when we're on the right direction? What's the personal barometer for that? Is it feeling good?
No,
Is it response from other people around you?
no.
What is it?
Well, I think that actually we do have an inner barometer. And it's not about feeling good, but we do have this sense of the right way to behave and the wrong way to behave.
Just an innate sense.
Not innate, I think it comes from experience. You know, it also comes from our good qualities. We don't have to cultivate new qualities. We already have compassion and generosity and patience and kindness. You know, we have these qualities, and those are not inaccurate. And from those, we can find our wisdom. You know, what messes it up is when our self-cherishing, our self-centeredness blocks our view. It is really hard, like when we care about, say we care about some social issue, okay? And we really want to improve, you know, do whatever we can to help change the way it is now. But we also have an idea of how that should happen. Our attachment to that idea of how it should happen can completely block our wisdom about how to have the change occur.
The control.
Well, it's self-interest. When we think we are right and we do not have to listen to anybody else's ideas, that's going to block us because we're all in it together. It's not enough for, you know, a dictator can't make it happen. You know, what is it? Singapore has sort of a benevolent dictator, you know, so they have all these, you know, wonderful laws that protect you from your, you know, your base impulses to chew gum or something. But, you know, it's like, we have to understand that the only way to have world peace is that no one has anger anymore. You know, for that to happen, if you're part of the condition for someone to help understand their anger and where it comes from and where it's misguided and all that kind of stuff, we can't have an agenda. Because that will block us from being able to see what works for them. Because we're not the same. We have different habits and different experiences and different whatever. We have to be able, that's why everything's a dependent arising. There isn't one way, one view, one anything. You know? I mean, according to, you know, the teachings, of course there are lots of religions in the world. There are lots of different dispositions of mind. And enlightened beings will use whatever method gets us on the right track. Because they're not attached to a view. What they want is to have suffering in. You know, so, you know, it's not about, it's about developing that inner wisdom. And then eventually, if we're on the right track, and we develop our concentration so that we can penetrate things like how we exist with an unwavering focus, that mind becomes very powerful, and we can, you know, our obstacles will, it's like the curtain will come down, and we'll be able to see, you know, wisdom will arise. So it's just, you know, so then we will actually know. Until then, we won't know. We have to do the best we can. And we do need to, you know, so we do need to hear what people are saying, just think, you know, am I just, you know, deluded here? Because maybe we are. Sometimes we do get that way. you know? So it's not that we just dismiss anybody else's thoughts or views or blah, blah, blah. But we don't just use them as, you know, the truth, you know. We want to find valid teachings, valid resources, you know. So it's a process. But the good news is it's not like we're, you know, it's not like we just spend our days going, I have nothing to do, you know. So you can just take the energy that you're doing and things that really you don't care about and why not let go of, and use that energy towards working on your mind. So just like you work on your bodies, and you work on the food you eat, you work all these things, you use some self-care to work on your mind, because that's the source of your happiness and suffering. So it's worthwhile. It's the best kind of self-care. Okay. Where am I? Who knows? I think I'm here. We're up to practice. Okay. So the disadvantages of not thinking about death. You know, you notice these, you know, these lists are to help us just because they're pretty easy, just so we can kind of remember them. So when we're trying to really cultivate the mind that is aware of death so that we use our time well, you know, these are just little ways in which, you know, the meditations will help you imprint your mind. So if we're only concerned with like the chocolate cake, you know, the sex, the ice cream, the, you know, the bigger paycheck, the, I don't know, the weekend, yes. Oh, I work weekends, drat. So we forget the long-term view. We fail to recall the Dharma. We fail to recall that it isn't just about happiness. The kind of happiness we all long for isn't about feeding our sense cravings. No. Those are necessarily disappointing in the end. They're fleeting. They're so fleeting, you know, that it's this is not what we mean when we say contentment. Contentment is not just having all the chocolate you want to eat. Because what happens when you have all the chocolate you want to eat? Then you get sick. It doesn't, and actually becomes something you don't like. So, you know, no win there. Okay. Oh yeah, I eat popcorn only before the day before I go to the dentist because I have to get my teeth cleaned.
Anyway.
But do I deprive myself of it always? No. Okay. So even if we recall the Dharma, if we don't remember death, we fail to practice. It's called procrastination. And then, oh yeah, I need to do that. But you know, when I retire. So. And even though we attempt to practice, we don't practice correctly. We get sleepy and bored. We quit the practice to follow attachment. So our practice lacks intensity. For somebody who's like recited refuge every day for 20 years, I can tell you there's sometimes that I don't really listen to the words at all. I'm just like, going on, yeah, I'm sure that helps, you know. So, you know, that's just attachment to just being done with my commitments. Big mistake. Greatly attached to this life, making no effort to change our habits, we continue to create negative karma. You know. And at the time of death, we recognize it's too late to practice, and we die in a state of regret. And this doesn't mean practice, you know, it's not about commitments, and it's about, you know, if we didn't work on our states of mind. So we continue to be angry or impatient or selfish or greedy or, careless or inconsiderate or da. We will have run out of time. We can't go back and make up all the time we missed with our children. We can't go back and make up all the time we missed for our grandchildren. We can't go back and be nicer to our friends. We can't go back and be nicer to our coworkers. We can't go back and actually, donate our time to some place that needs us. So if we don't recall that it's a time limited deal, and we have some wisdom in this life, this is the time to use it. And that can help the scenario of create, so that the time of death, instead of feeling like, I should have done that, all this regret, you can feel good, contented, and peaceful. Okay, it's time to let go. And then you can think, may I carry these good habits to the next one? I had a friend who died, and he was a Buddhist, and she said she was really sad. Her daughter had just gotten pregnant, her first grandchild was on the way, and she was going to die. She was not going to make it. And so she had a lot of sadness about that and leaving her partner behind and all that kind of stuff. But she was also really excited about the next adventure. I thought, this is a nice way to be. This isn't, denial about the loss, but it's also just not grasping at this life as permanent. It's not permanent, The good news is there's a next moment. How that next moment looks is dependent on how we train our mind in this moment. So it's just a training. It's just recognizing I really like my mind to go in this direction instead of this direction. But going this direction hasn't worked out too well. So let's learn how to notice what's going on in the mind and shift it. And so setting a motivation in the morning can really help shift it. It just reminds you, oh yeah, that's not important to me. This is what's important to me. I want to really remember that when I leave work today and I come home, that I come home without the work. That I come home with gratitude to the people waiting for me when I come home. That I come home with whatever it is. I go to work with gratitude for having a job. So we remember to make time for things that are important to us. And that's just really about, saying a kind word here, there, interacting with people. You still have to do your work, blah, blah, blah. But you don't have to do it hating it. That's a choice. So. Questions?
Yes. But there's not guarantee that in the next opportunity, in rebirth, you're going to be a human.
There's no guarantee, but if we can work on our minds to have a mind that's mostly focused on cherishing others and being, peaceful and content, not trying to control everything out here, but being able to just accept what's happening right now with, an attitude of non-grasping. You don't keep holding tight that, I can't let go of this life. But if you could just, more of just going, okay, may I be of use in my next life. May I be helpful to other beings. May I remember the teachings. May I remember that what's important to me is to be a kind, considerate, loving, helpful person. May I benefit others. Then that sets up a good condition for a positive karmic seed to ripen. If you practice a lot of anger, So at the time of death, you're just pissed off that it's your time. That's going to be a bad condition. So you really have to look at what are you practicing? What is your habit of mind? If your attitude is like, not me, it's not my turn, it's not fair, that's not a good condition. You know, it's just not helpful. You know, but it's learning how to just go, okay, this is what it is. And that's helpful right now. You know, whether we're facing the moment of death or not. It's helpful to be able to go, this is what is. Let me deal with it. I don't have to be angry about it. I don't have to feel cheated. I don't have to feel blah, blah, blah. You know, I can just handle it. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is a question that, based on what Anthony asked at the beginning of the class, can you distinguish between thought, state of mind?
State of mind is
and because if anger is a state of mind, but if I start meditating on it or thinking about it, doesn't it become an object as well?
It's an object of mind then.
Okay.
See, the object of mind of anger is some source of it.
So if anger becomes an object of my mind, am I no longer, is it possible that I'm no longer in a state of anger?
And then you'll have to look. I mean, you have to, this is the deal. Usually if we're under a strong state of mind like anger or jealousy or envy or pride or something, in those moments, we are whatever thoughts we have that are being influenced by that anger, because a mind has 5 always present mental factors, as well as whatever other mental factors you bring with it. So if anger is what's there, it's influencing all the other parts, and it's distorted. It's distorted. It's exaggerating the negative qualities. So while it's there, while it's in control of, while that mind is present, anger's in control. Now, in the next moment, if you go, okay, I'm not going to continue this mind of anger, and I'm going to examine why it's, not working for me. Then it becomes an object of mind. It's not the state of mind, which is the state of mind that's working is discrimination. You're trying to, bring the discriminating awareness to this state.
And
You can't do that if you're still angry.
And a related question, can the mind be on several objects at once, or is it just moving quickly?
It's just moving quickly. We go back and forth, as our love-hate relationships show. We don't actually love and hate someone at the same time. It's moment to moment.
And I can see that now in meditation.
Yes.
You jump
Yes.
off, get off the mind for a
Yeah.
minute. Oh, wait, come back.
Well, this is why we meditate. We meditate so we can see those moments between the thoughts. So we can, discover the stillness of the mind that all these thoughts are jumping around in, and use it to serve us. So that's part of what meditation does for us, settling the mind and then being able to recognize there's actually a lot of space in there. Because you're using your mind to watch your mind, so it's equally fast. So it's just a matter of cultivating it. Okay. Okay, did everybody sign that list that wants the teachings?
I did.
Okay, well, don't leave without putting the name on it.
Oh.
And your email address. So, in legible writing. It's just every class, there's always somebody's handwriting I can't read. And I'm not good guessing. I'll send 3 and they'll all come back. So, okay, so let's, so this week I'm sending you some meditations on the 9-point, whatever it's called, 9-point meditation on death. And I've broken it up into the 3 parts so that you can go into a little deeper. a little more thoroughly. Because the main point of these, because they're really easy, I mean, we all know we're going to die, blah, 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 is to put your own words to it so that you can make it real for you. So you can have the experience of, oh, I really am going to die. You can use whatever you need to. You can use the experience of hearing a good friend is going to die. You can use, all these things where, oh, that's going to happen to me. We used it whenever we had a memorial service. We kind of started because you do know this could be you. And that one day it will be you. So, oh my goodness. So we'll ignore that. So I've sent it to you in parts so that you can do one part, but that you do them in order, And of course, when you begin, you're really just reading it. You're just getting familiar with it. But you want to, and then whenever you're reflecting on the material, and if you have some sort of experience, where you understand it, or like, oh, you have that kind of like, oh, I get this. You really want to rest there for a moment. You don't just keep reading or keep analyzing. You want to stay with that experience because this is how it becomes, not intellectual, but it's part of our experience as well. It's not just our thinking, it's a direct experience. So that's important. There's a lot of reading, like I said, but good luck with that. That's all I can say. And just bring your questions. If when questions pop up as you're reading or whatever, or doing them, just bring them back, and we'll talk about them to the best of my ability. Okay. So now we want to be really happy about that. We've just spent a bunch of time here this evening, actually exploring, a new way of looking at our mind and how we might be able to impact, the time of death. That this is something we're all going to experience. So, and this is just any time we look at things from a different angle, it helps shatter our sense of already knowing. So that it just opens the possibility for us to learn more. So that's, a good habit to develop. So, and just rejoice in the fact that you've made an intention to come here and you followed through, and you've managed to, I think nobody fell asleep. I said that in meditation one time, and apparently someone had fallen asleep, and I felt bad about that because it's okay. It just means you need sleep. And I'm bored, but that's all right. The teachings are not. The teachings are gold. I mean, I know that from my personal experience, so I hope that you can work with them. Anyway, but take what fits and don't worry about what doesn't fit. Just put it on the shelf, look at it later. So, but really be happy about how you spent your time. So according to the teachings, spending your time in these kind of positive ways of really working out how can I contribute to a more positive existence, that's a great thing to do, and that's going to result in positive results for you in the future. So we want to share them with everybody, so we want to have that thought that, whatever I take away from this, whatever positive energy I've created during this experience, during this effort of trying to listen, think about, question, may it ripen on, may the benefits last until there are no suffering sentient beings left. So that it lasts until we all figure it out. So set up good motivation to get home safely.
Will you just mention too the key if anyone wants to go?
Oh, these programs are also online at the FDMT website. And if you want to be able to listen to the programs online, for extra $20, right? Yeah, it's like $30 online. We can give you the key so that you can also read the transcripts of those teachings, listen to the audio files, whatever. So Nick Rebirth is the one who taught this module. And there's a lot of material, so don't, so don't get overwhelmed. What I tell you. What else was I going to say? The other end is to do, so I said, you motivate in the morning. At the end of the day, you really want to rejoice about all the things that you did that day that were in the direction you want to go. Be happy about that. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And also, too, just a quick reminder about the animal blessing this Saturday at Whitewaters Park. We have flyers out on the bulletin. Or please join us for meditation on Sunday at 10:15 to 10:45, or a class at 11 o'clock.
Because your pets need a good rebirth too.
Thank you.